This spring, I embarked on a project to count down to Pentecost by making 31 short videos about the 31 pages of this medieval manuscript that I copied, one page per day. It's now after Pentecost, but I still want to finish the project, so let's pick up where I left off. Day 8, page 24, Order of Operations. This manuscript contains a large number of beautiful painted initials called versals, and you'll notice that I haven't done those yet. Standard calligraphic procedure in the medieval period, and today, was to complete the body text first, writing only very small letters called guide letters to tell the illuminator what letter to paint. Next, the illuminator would trace the outline of the big initial in lead point or silver point. Then, they would gild any versals that used gold leaf, and last of all, they'd do the painting. Here's the logic. The body text is copied first, because only when it's done do you know where to put the versals. Outlines are done next to work out the form of gilding and painting. Gold leaf will stick to paint, so the gilding has to come before the painting. And then, finally, once the body text and the outlines and the gilding are done, then the painter fills in the outlines with paint. I'm not yet done with my manuscript. I'm almost done with the text, and after that, I'll move on to gilding and painting. Subscribe to watch my journey in progress. Day 9, page 23, Alphabet Hunting. I ran into a huge problem on this page, the letter Y. You see, I'm copying an English translation of this book, and the original was in Dutch. Because I'm not copying the original letter for letter, I sometimes will use letters that aren't in the original manuscript. This manuscript uses one set of minuscule letters for the body text and two sets of capital letters for decoration, and there's no guarantee that the original book will use all 26 letters out of each set. Fortunately, Dutch is pretty similar to English, and I was able to find most of the letters I needed, but this alphabet was missing several letters, including Y. I don't want to just make up letters, if I can help it, so what I do in this situation is look at other books from the same region, the Netherlands, and the same time period, the 15th century. And thanks to the very excellent work of the folks at the University of Pennsylvania Manuscript Digitization Project, this search is extremely straightforward. Sure enough, I was able to find a Y from this 15th century Dutch psalter. Hooray! Day 10, page 22, What and Why. It's day 10, and I've only now realized that I haven't yet explained. Why am I counting down to Pentecost? Also, what's Pentecost? Pentecost is a Christian holiday celebrating a miracle described in the book of Acts. 50 days after Jesus' resurrection, and 10 days after his ascent into heaven, his followers go to Jerusalem to celebrate the Jewish holiday of Shavuot. There, the Holy Spirit descends from heaven and gives them the miraculous ability to speak and prophesy in foreign languages, a sign that they had not been left alone and that the Holy Spirit was always with them. And to this day, many Christians continue to celebrate this miracle on the 50th day after Easter. Now, a book of hours contains several different prayer cycles called devotions, each meant for a different time and purpose. There was the Vigil for the Dead for times of grief, the 7 penitential psalms for times of penitence, and there was the Hours of the Holy Spirit for the season of Pentecost. Scribes and book owners chose which devotions to include according to their prayer lives and practical concerns, and so the exact contents of the Book of Hours varied widely. There was no single standard Book of Hours. The Hours of the Holy Spirit is a very good fit for my prayer life, and also for my practical concerns as a calligrapher. At 30 pages, it's neither impractically long nor disappointingly short. So that's what I'm copying. And since Pentecost, the celebration of the descent of the Holy Spirit, is right around the corner, it just feels right to count down to it by sharing this work. Day 11, page 21, The Purpose in the Beauty. The decoration on this page isn't just for show. It all serves a purpose. This prayer cycle is divided into 7 hours to be said at 7 different times of day. The beginning of each hour is marked with a large gilded initial letter, and with this simple but intricate fine filigree. Each hour is then divided into 4 or 5 major sections, each dedicated to a different type of prayer or song. For example, this hour, Vespers, starts with a short call and response prayer called the invitatory. After that comes the hymn, then the psalm. After the psalm comes the antiphon, a sort of short introductory hymn that leads into the Magnificat, which is a song from the New Testament. After the Magnificat comes a repeat of the antiphon, then another call and response prayer called the versicle, and finally a longer prayer written in prose called the collect. Each of these sections is marked by a capital letter that is large, but not quite as large as the gilded letter, and painted, but not gilded. Within each of those sections, subsections like verses are marked by small painted capitals. And within those subsections, subsections, such as call and response parts, are marked by yet smaller Gothic capitals written in black ink and highlighted in red. These gradations allow the reader to find parts of the text easily. Are you praying the hour of Vespers? Look for vines and a big gilded capital. Waiting for the hymn to start? Medium-sized painted capital. Looking for the next verse? Small painted capital. It's beautiful, but also practical. It helps the reader use the text. Day 12, page 20, A Logistical Nightmare. It's 789 AD, and Emperor Charlemagne has decreed every monastic choir in the land must sing the same repertoire as the choirs in Rome. This is no small task. Monastics spend at least 6 hours a day singing. A lot of the songs repeat, sure, but there's still about 75 hours of new music that you have to memorize. By heart. Music notes haven't been invented yet. To break down the task into manageable chunks, the 8th century monasteries arranged all the melodies by their place on the musical scale called the mode. They then ordered their services so every song in a single service would be in the same mode. That way, the monks and nuns could organize the repertoire by mode and memorize all the songs from a single mode at once, since they all would be melodically similar. And since all the songs in a single church service were also from the same mode, they also sounded melodically similar, and the monastics would have an easier time recalling what would come next. The system worked, and it lasted. This manuscript that I'm copying was written 600 years after Emperor Charlemagne's decree, but look, the antiphon we see here is in mode 8. The hymn at the beginning of each section, also mode 8. Therefore, we know that this psalm was also chanted using one of these tone 8 melodies. There's not a single musical note in this book, but thanks to this system, we know, more or less, how it was sung. Day 13, page 19. Is this heresy? This book of ours is written in Dutch. More precisely, it was translated from Latin into Dutch by Gerhard Grote, the founder of a religious movement called the Modern Devotion. The modern devotion started out in the 14th century as a loose network of ordinary Dutch townsfolk who felt called to devote their lives to religion, but who didn't or couldn't become monks or nuns. This was risky. The church authorities were always on the lookout for heretics and other religious troublemakers. Most of those authorities were monks, and they tended to suspect people who were super into Christianity, but who weren't into becoming monks. So very quickly, the modern devotion became very focused on books. Reading books, making books, and, only occasionally, writing new books. In some other movements, books could be subversive, but the modern devotion seemed to use books as a way to prove their acceptability. Us? We read books and copy them. Very conventional books. Here, read for yourself. Please. We don't make speeches, we don't make trouble, we just make books. Wanting their movement to include the common people, they wrote and translated books in the common language of their country, Dutch. Hence, this Dutch book of ours, an accessibly readable translation of a conspicuously non-heretical prayer book. Day 14, page 18, Pouncing and Pricking. Let's take a closer look at the decoration on this page. The G has an interior painting of 2 twin flowers, and the margins have this elaborate vine work. And on this page, we see an almost identical flower painting, and there's an identical vine work on this page, and this one, and this one, and this one. It's likely that these decorations were copied from a scribal pattern book, and the exactness of the copies indicates that the illuminator may have copied them using either pouncing or pricking. This was a kind of tracing, done by poking holes in a pattern drawing. The illuminator would then lay the pattern drawing over the page they were illuminating, and either prick small divots into it, pricking, or sprinkle a white powder called pounce over it and into the holes, pouncing. Both of these techniques would basically give you a connect the dots that you could easily fill in with full outlines. Or at least that's the theory. This was my first attempt at pouncing, and as you can see, it didn't really work. Oh well, at least the pricking worked okay. Subscribe to see more of my mistakes. And if you feel intimidated by the prospect of copying medieval illumination, just remember, tracing isn't just okay, it's historically accurate. If you see a medieval illumination that looks like it's beyond your abilities, do like the medievals did. Prick it, pounce it, and make it yours.